So I want to talk to you about what I've been working on over the last couple months, and this is 0 to 5,000. It's a work in progress, and this is everything that I've done building a SaaS application in public. So a little bit of a backstory. I started out writing the book on the right, the App Design Handbook. I didn't have an audience or a popular blog or anything, and I worked hard on marketing it, built it up, and it sold really well. And so I was quite happy with that. Rolled it into a second book. And so I now make my living off of selling those two books. The downside about that is shown in these graphs. When you sell ebooks, the revenue curve, especially if you push towards a huge launch, looks like the one on top. You have this insane spike for designing web applications. That spike was $26,000 in one day. And then it drops off like crazy. Which, if anybody running a business, that's not the revenue curve you want to have. That's not a good thing. You can do things further along the lines, writing more blog posts, things like that will get, more sales, and the books continue to sell about 10 grand a month. And I'm certainly not complaining about that, but I want to build a real business that grows continually, predictably over time. It doesn't have to have a fantastic up and to the right curve, but it needs to grow month over month. And so basically I started the search for building something that had recurring revenue. And being a blogger, I decided that I should do it in public. And more material for my blog, more to write about, and try to help people in some way. So I announced the Web App Challenge. And the rules of the Web App Challenge were that I started on January 1st of this year without an idea, with absolutely no clue what I was going to build. My goal is to build to $5,000 a month in recurring revenue within 6 months, so that's July 1st of this year. I was only allowed to spend $5,000 of my own money. I wanted to make sure that this would be a process that other people could follow, other people could relate to. So if I took all my ebook revenue and spent 50 grand or 100 grand or whatever amount to hire a bunch of people and build it out, that wasn't something that I think other people could relate to nearly as well. And then I finally had the requirement of only working on it 20 hours a week. That one went out the door, and not for the reason, I still probably work on it about 20 hours a week. But what I found is I absolutely hate tracking time. And so I left jobs and consulting so I didn't have to track time. And then I somehow put this arbitrary requirement on myself to track time, and that was dumb. So anyway, so these are the lessons that I learned in the process, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what I built along the way. But the first lesson is that teaching is the best form of marketing. So I learned this actually selling the books, and I built up an audience, through blog posts and tutorials. That's how I got people to come and have interest and purchase the books, and that worked really well. So when I started to go after, pick a market that I was going to build software for, I knew that you could have a lot of success in any kind of a niche. So years ago, I built a web application that did scheduling for sign language interpreting agencies, and which is really pretty a niche product, but it solved a pain. They were happy to pay money for it, and it worked well. So I knew that you could find painful problems in a niche, and so I started out saying, I will, doing customer development, and I went in all kinds of different directions, lawyers, insurance agents, any kind of business. And a friend of mine, Amy Hoy, stopped me and said, "What the hell are you doing? You've spent, this time, you've built up this audience." At the time I had, 4,000 people on an email list from the marketing of the books. You've built this audience, and you're looking to throw it away to go after some market that doesn't care about everything you've done before. And she was reminding me that I've spent all this time, I know how wonderful teaching is as a marketing method, but I don't have anything that I can teach to lawyers. It's not something, and so I started to look at markets that were problems that I had, were things that the designers in my audience and other people, products that would help solve their problems. That way, I could have something to teach and market to them. So, started down that direction, and I did a lot of customer validation. So, I called up people, a bunch of different friends, acquaintances, trying to figure out this idea that I had, whether or not people would pay for it, whether or not it was worthwhile. I didn't want to go build an MVP, spend my really limited $5,000 budget, and find out later that nobody would buy it. And so I called up a bunch of people, talked to them, found out that it was a pain. The idea that I was working on is when I was selling my books, email was far and above the best converting method for sales. And so I set out to build the email marketing tool that I wish I had in that process. And so I'm asking all these friends and acquaintances if they had that pain. Yes, they did. Would work through it. And I knew to ask, would you buy this? And without a doubt, almost everybody said yes. And I knew that friends tend to say, like, you don't want to hurt somebody's feelings or talk badly about their idea. So you'd be like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'd buy that. And I knew that that was different than actually paying for it. So I pressed further and I said, how much would you pay? And we came in to specific dollar amounts ranging from $100 to $300 a month that these people would pay. And then I pressed even further and said, would you pre-order it? And I thought, okay, I've got this taken care of. They said they would pre-order it. So that's good. The problem is I didn't have a way for anybody to pre-order it. So I said, I'll set up some of the pre-orders when I'm a little further down the process, and I'll get back to you. And so I did get back to them later, and it turns out that just asking somebody if they would pay for it, or even asking if they would pre-order it for a specific dollar amount, is not specific enough. There's always things that are going to come up, features that are missing. It's too much work to move over from another platform, something like that. So don't count them as a customer until you have their credit card. I've been talking to a lot of people here over the last few days who are working on a product and are saying, I've talked to 20 people and they all said they're going to buy it. And don't trust that at all. That's not worth anything, because you're not going to get the real feedback until you ask for their credit card right then. And I learned that lesson the hard way. When I did finally come out with pre-orders, very few, or almost none of the people I thought were certain would pre-order ended up doing it. But thankfully, there were plenty of other people that did. So it validated the idea, but not in the way that I expected. So the next lesson I learned is that being your own customer is wonderful. When I was working on that scheduling tool for sign language interpreters years ago, I would go through and test it. And I'd go, here's how to create an assignment, here's how to create an invoice, and I would test the tool. But it was all really artificial, because I wasn't building it for myself. It wasn't a tool that I had any reason to use. So I would just try to follow what I thought how the customer would use it, and that resulted in putting in a lot of fake data, and so I couldn't test it very well. With ConvertKit, my email marketing tool, I'm the biggest customer for it. I'm the one who wants these new features and wants it implemented and built a certain way as quickly as possible. So I'm constantly testing it, and I can use it in a real world way. So if at all possible, I would say be your own customer. The next lesson is that transparency really works. So throughout this web app challenge, one of the rules is that I had to write about every step of the process and make it public on my blog. And so instead of building something in secret and then 6 months later releasing it and say, hey guys, look at what I've made, and launching to crickets, I had people helping me and reading along the way. And so there's a few thousand people that have put in their email addresses to get updates of the blog posts. And so what that means is when it came time to hire a developer, I didn't post a job ad for developers. I said, I'd like to work with a great Ruby developer. Do you know anyone? And I had 25 Ruby developers contact me and say, we'd love to work on this project, and it made that a lot easier. And I had things like, when I started to go down the road of targeting lawyers or some other random market, I had people like Amy Hoy tell me that's a terrible idea. And had I kept that all to myself and worked totally in secret, none of that would have happened. So being totally transparent has helped me a lot. The last thing is that when I started all of this, my focus was on fixing my revenue problem, right? Switching from one-time sales to recurring revenue. So I was trying to build a product that would give me recurring revenue, and that was the entire focus. And I found that would result in a change in how I approached support requests and everything, where it was all about me and improving my revenue. And so I would give the shortest possible answer in support requests. And it manifested itself in a lot of ways. And so about a month ago, I realized that my entire goal needs to be helping my customers be successful. And so whether that's someone else who needs email marketing to sell their ebook, instead of just helping them figure out the features, I can actually spend the time to help them with their marketing plan and their launch strategy and all these other things that they're really going to need in order to be successful. And the more successful I make my customers, the happier they'll be. They'll continue paying. They'll say more wonderful things about ConvertKit. And so this was a huge mindset shift for me, and I just wish that I had started with that from the beginning. So just as a quick update of where it's at, 30% of the way towards the $5,000 a month, 32 paying customers, and it's coming along pretty well. I've got 2 months left to hit my goal. And it's easier to hit your goal, I'm finding, when you have a product. So most of these were pre-orders, and so it's easier to sell now that people don't have to wait for the product. Anyway, so you can read about the process on nathanbarry.com, and then the product I'm building is called ConvertKit. So thanks, guys.